So, who are you, and what is your connection to the Urban Survivors Union and/or the drug user organizing movement?
My name is Travis Lupick. I'm a journalist based in Vancouver, Canada, and the author of Fighting for Space, How a Group of Drug Users Transform One City's Struggle with Addiction, which is about harm reduction in Canada. And I began to get involved in the Urban Survivors Union almost 2 years ago, maybe, on a book tour through the United States, promoting Fighting for Space. I wanted to learn more about activist movements, drug policy reform circles in the United States, and when I connected with Louise Vincent and also Jess Tilley, they really quickly convinced me that the Urban Survivors Union was who I would want to be hanging out with.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? So second question that I had was, what was going through your mind as you prepared to attend the convening?
I very much went into the St. Louis convention viewing it as a first. I know that there have been efforts to organize drug user movements at national level before, but while I don't mean to discount those earlier efforts, I think that this one was a little more organized and a little more convened with long-term thinking and long-term planning, and I think that gave it the potential for something really special. I think that it stands to be the beginning of a united effort among drug users at the national level to push back against America's war on drugs, and I think I was aware of that going into it and was really excited about that.
And what was your first impression as the event began?
From before the conference even started, just meeting attendees around the hotel, the convening was immediately living up to my expectations. Louise and Jess and Robert and Shiloh and everybody did a lot of prep work, gathering a good group of people, and that really was evident even before the conference started. Those were people who wanted to be there and who are ready to put in the work that this is going to require.
And what excited you most about being present for the first ever national convening of drug user organizers from a country the size and magnitude of the United States?
Yeah, a country the size and magnitude of the United States. Talking about a country that in so many terms would be a continent anywhere else in the world, and that presents a lot of unique challenges. Drug user organizing at the national level in the United States is not going to be easy. It's the equivalent of getting the British and the French and the Ukrainians, the Italians all to agree on something, right? This is a big and diverse country. But that also means that there's a lot of potential and opportunity there. It's not going to be easy, but I saw again in the people that Louise and Jess brought together, this national movement sort of drawing on those differences and using them to their advantage.
And what surprised you the most about the convening?
I don't know if it surprised me the most, but I think my favorite part was sort of leading the convening scene, that it was just the very beginning of something. The last session of the day left everybody with these questions, right? How do you define membership, and what is our mission statement going to be? How are we going to agree on and create a system for decision making? And that was really encouraging because there were specific, concrete steps for what next. And as the members who were there in St. Louis began to wrestle with those questions together online, I think you see that the convening organizers were really smart to sort it's just the beginning, just the first steps, and then at the end of the day to move it forward with those questions, because moving forward is what's happening now.
So many people have described the event as a historic undertaking. What about this event qualifies it as historic in your experience?
Well, we've seen lots of civil rights movements in the United States before. There's a very strong tradition of protest and activism in this country, and of protest and activism actually accomplishing things. The struggle for human rights and equal rights for LGBTQ people in America comes to mind. That was a movement that was given nothing, and that had to, for years and then decades, fight very hard for first simple recognition, the acknowledgement that they exist, and then for equal rights for people who happen to be gay. And I think the USU convening in St. Louis, that was the beginning of what can happen with the movement of drug users in the United States. A group of people that just happen to use drugs who no longer think that they should be treated less than people who don't use drugs.
And so after covering the historic events in Vancouver, Canada, that led to the creation of the first safe injection site in North America, do you see any similarities in the movement that's happening now in the United States?
For sure, I do see similarities, and those similarities are very encouraging. Drug user activism in Vancouver, which really got off the ground in the mid-90s, drug user activism in Vancouver, and the movement that eventually established Canada and North America's first supervised injection site was a very grassroots effort, literally grassroots. It began on a park. Nobody would allow drug users into the building. So it was a movement that started in Vancouver and spread across Canada, coming from drug users themselves, and not even just drug users. This was a group of incredibly marginalized, often homeless, people struggling with severe addictions, usually to heroin and cocaine. So this was a group that was marginalized in every way, and they came together and accomplished something really big in Vancouver by 2003 with the establishment of Insight, and that's the parallel that I see in the foundation that the USU is leading here. This is work that's being done by drug users.
I find it interesting too, the parallels that have kind of emerged with kind of the rise of grieving parent organizations working hand in hand with users unions, and we're actually seeing this happen in a number of different areas. And I just find it really interesting.
I'm super encouraged by it, because when I began to learn about harm reduction in the United States, I was quite maybe caught off guard by the extent to which, in some areas, harm reduction has developed in quite a top-down motion. I'm thinking about psychotherapy and people like Andrew Tatarski, and these people that are brilliant and have accomplished so much for harm reduction in America, but who are not always drug users themselves, and are not always coming from a place of activism. Whereas in Canada, harm reduction has always really come from a more grassroots harm reduction space. So I think it's really neat to see in the last 5 years groups like the USU getting drug users more involved in that movement and putting them right in the front of it.
So what do you think is the message that such an event sends about the future of drug user organizing and the fight for human rights here in America?
Well, I hope the message that it sends is watch out. That was something that Robert Suarez said the morning of November 6th. We're done politicking, we're coming for you. I hope the message that policymakers and politicians take from it is that drug users are no longer going to be left out of conversations about drug policy and drug policy reform. If a policy is going to affect them, they're going to be involved in that conversation.
So if you could summarize your takeaway from this event in a brief statement, what would it be?
New Orleans in late 2018 and St. Louis earlier this November. These dates and then the events that happened there and the organizing that took This is the beginning of something big for drug users, and people should watch out.
Yeah, it's been my privilege to actually have been involved in both of those, and especially leading the march down in New Orleans. That was really powerful. So, as we kind of...
I was really sorry I missed that. I couldn't get the money together.
Dude, it's all good, man. It happens. It's like literally on a wish and a prayer. Like, I flew by the seat of my pants down there. And I'm still, like, boggled by how I was able to make it all work. Awesome. Well, I thought it was really, really telling, you know, especially kind of getting, like, what's, to me, like, both an outsider's and insider's view. You have, like, a really kind of interesting straddle of your perspective because, like, you're outside and inside at the same time. Well, yeah, you're outside the U.S., but inside the U.S. You're outside of the drug using community, but inside the drug using community. So I just thought it was really neat to just kind of like get your take on things because it's really didactic. You know, I don't think it's typical of the people that I would be interviewing to be able to get like really to capture the full volume of your experience and what you've been able to absorb just through observation, because really you've been a very, very diligent observer for quite a while. So that perspective is definitely well respected in my opinion. So
hopefully I'm making myself useful.
Yeah, I'm like almost done your book. I'm like, and I'm going to stop the recording because I don't need to record this anymore.